Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, this one's pretty fascinating. We're going to be looking at a conversation with a pretty prominent figure in tech and business, recorded right before a pivotal election.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I think the timing adds a whole other dimension to it, too.
Oh, absolutely. It really captures like the mood of the moment,
Yeah.
all the anxieties and the aspirations.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really jumped out at me was their stance on free speech.
Hmm.
They really doubled down on the idea that buying that major social media platform was like a make-or-break moment for safeguarding free speech.
Right.
They even went so far as to say that not doing so would have been like an existential threat to democracy, especially here in the U.S.
It's a bold claim for sure. It raises some interesting questions about, how much power private companies should have when it comes to protecting something that's traditionally been seen as a fundamental right.
Right. And they were clearly really concerned about what they saw as this growing trend of censorship and control over information.
Yeah.
They brought up that whole controversy with the laptop as a prime example.
Oh, yeah. That one definitely stirred up a lot of debate about media bias and how tech companies can shape public perception.
For sure. And it also tapped into this larger trend of distrust in traditional institutions, with more and more people turning to alternative sources for news and information.
Absolutely.
And speaking of alternative sources, the conversation then shifted to the interviewee's own critique of mainstream media.
Yeah.
They didn't hold back at all, calling them biased and accusing them of pushing hoaxes.
It's a pretty stark contrast, isn't it, between the established media and these emerging platforms?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It really highlights this tension that's running through so much of our public discourse these days.
And they really championed this idea of source material and what they called community-based fact-checking as a more reliable path to truth.
It's a compelling argument, but it also makes you wonder, how do you ensure accuracy in those spaces?
Right.
How do you prevent misinformation from spreading?
Exactly. And they gave a few specific examples of what they considered hoaxes to back up their point.
Do you remember the one about the firing squad?
Oh, yeah. That's a perfect example of how easily information could be twisted and taken out of context.
Right. It really underscores the importance of critical thinking and media literacy.
Especially now when we're bombarded with so much information from so many different sources.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the future.
Okay.
The interviewee painted a pretty optimistic picture of a future driven by advancements in things like electric vehicles, sustainable energy, and of course AI.
Yeah, and their work with electric cars, space exploration, and even humanoid robots really shows that forward-thinking mindset.
Totally. Like they're not content with just incremental progress. They want to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And their perspective on AI was particularly fascinating. They even talked about their own AI project and shared this funny anecdote about a prompt they gave it.
It's a nice reminder that even with all this incredible technology, we still need a sense of humor.
Oh, absolutely. But things got a little more serious when the conversation turned to their concerns about government overreach.
Yeah, especially when it comes to bureaucracy and regulation.
It really revealed their libertarian leanings.
Mm-hmm. A strong emphasis on individual liberty and limited government intervention.
Exactly. And they told this really striking story about the government seizing and euthanizing a pet squirrel.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it sounds unbelievable, right?
Ugh.
But it really drove home their point about how even seemingly small regulations can have these unintended and sometimes really devastating consequences.
Wow, I've never heard that one before. That's a powerful example.
It is, and it really resonates with anyone who's ever felt frustrated by bureaucratic red tape.
Oh, for sure.
And, it also speaks to this broader distrust of government authority that seems to be growing all over the world.
Yeah, you're right.
They even proposed some pretty radical solutions like completely overhauling government agencies and cutting spending dramatically.
Those are definitely some bold ideas.
They've been circulating for a while, but they feel particularly relevant now with so many governments facing budget deficits and struggling to provide basic services.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see if those ideas gain any traction.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Well, let's wade into some potentially controversial waters, shall we?
Sounds good.
The interviewee also shared their views on immigration and election integrity.
Oh, boy. Those are two topics that always seem to spark heated debates.
You're not kidding. And it's important to approach these issues with nuance and sensitivity, recognizing that there are valid concerns on all sides.
Well, absolutely.
The interviewee expressed concern about the impact of illegal immigration on election outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
specifically pointing to what they saw as a massive influx of illegal immigrants into swing states.
Right. That's an argument that often comes up in discussions about voter fraud.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it reflects this underlying anxiety about the fairness and integrity of our democratic processes.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
You said it. And they were also critical of certain policies, like the use of that app that they believe was facilitating illegal border crossings.
Oh, right. Yeah, that controversy really highlights how technology is changing the whole landscape of immigration.
For sure, both in how people migrate and how governments respond.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already.
I know, right? Are you still with me?
Hanging on every word. This is like a whirlwind tour of some of the most pressing issues of our time.
That's a great way to put it. And you know what? We're not even done yet. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into this fascinating conversation.
Back for more.
We are back for more, and things are about to get even more interesting.
Buckle up.
So picking up where we left off, the interviewee really dug into their concerns about illegal immigration and its impact on election outcomes.
Right.
Specifically, they highlighted what they saw as a surge of illegal immigrants in swing states.
Mm-hmm.
And they went on to say that they believe these immigrants are being flown in and actually given incentives to vote in a specific way.
Wow. So they're suggesting a deliberate strategy to sway the election.
That's what it sounds like.
It's a pretty serious accusation.
It is, and it taps into this whole debate about election integrity and how demographics can shift political power.
It's a touchy subject for sure.
No doubt about it. Strong feelings on all sides.
Yeah, and it's important to listen to those concerns without jumping to conclusions.
Absolutely.
Really examine the evidence before forming an opinion.
Exactly. They also brought up California as a kind of case study.
Oh, interesting.
They were pretty critical of policies like no ID requirements for voting and measures that they believe incentivize illegal immigration.
Right.
And they argued that these kinds of policies could lead to a situation where one party stays in power indefinitely, which could undermine democratic principles.
Yeah, it raises questions about checks and balances,
For sure.
and the potential for any party to abuse their power if they're not held accountable.
Exactly. And their concerns didn't stop there.
What else did they talk about?
Oh, they also had a lot to say about the economy.
Let's hear it.
Well, they painted a pretty bleak picture of the country's financial future.
Oh.
Yeah, they pointed to the rising national debt and what they see as unsustainable government spending. They basically said we're on a path to bankruptcy.
Yikes. That's a scary thought.
It is, and it's something that resonates with a lot of people, especially in times of economic uncertainty.
Yeah, you can't help but worry about the long-term consequences of these policies.
For sure. And you know what they proposed?
What's that?
A total overhaul of the federal bureaucracy.
Okay.
They called it bloated inefficient. A drain on resources.
Sounds familiar.
They even used the term giant bureaucratic tumor.
Wow. That's pretty strong language.
It is, but it really emphasizes how serious they believe this problem is.
It echoes what a lot of people are feeling right now, this sense that government has become too big, too intrusive.
And their solution involved eliminating unnecessary agencies, streamlining regulations, and drastically cutting government waste.
So essentially shrinking the government's footprint.
Pretty much their vision is a smaller, more efficient government that prioritizes individual freedom and economic growth.
It's a classic libertarian perspective.
And what's interesting is that they even suggested offering generous severance packages to government employees who would be let go as part of this restructuring.
Oh, wow. So they're acknowledging the potential human costs.
Exactly. They said it's not about punishing people, it's about creating a better system for everyone.
It's a more humane approach for sure.
Okay, ready for another hot topic?
Hit me.
Manufacturing, bringing it back to the U.S.
Ah, yes. Another issue close to their heart.
And they had some pretty strong opinions about tariffs.
Interesting. How did they view them?
They see tariffs as a tool to be used strategically and cautiously.
Okay.
While they acknowledge the benefits of free trade, they also believe in protecting domestic industries and jobs from unfair competition.
So it's a balancing act between promoting economic growth and protecting American workers.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
It's a complex equation.
It is. And,
Yeah.
it ties into their larger belief in self-reliance, both personally and nationally.
Yeah, you can see that thread running through a lot of their ideas.
Totally. They're big on the idea of individuals being as self-sufficient as possible and the country prioritizing domestic production.
It's all about independence and taking control of your own destiny.
Right. And speaking of independence, they brought up Starlink, their satellite internet service.
Oh, yeah.
They envision a world where high-speed internet access is available everywhere, even the most remote corners of the planet.
This is a pretty ambitious goal.
It is, but it has the potential to bridge the digital divide and open up so many opportunities for people in underserved areas.
Think about the impact on education, healthcare communication.
It's mind-boggling.
Imagine no more dead zones, no more outrageous roaming charges.
It would be a game changer.
It would. And you know what else they talked about?
Tell me.
Space exploration.
No way.
Yes, way. They discussed their long-term plans, including the goal of establishing a human presence on Mars.
Wow, that's taking things to a whole other level.
It really is. It speaks to their boundless ambition and belief in human potential.
They're not just thinking about solving problems here on Earth. They're looking beyond to the stars.
It's inspiring to see that kind of vision.
I know, right? So we've gone from free speech to government overreach, from immigration to tariffs, and now even space travel.
What a journey.
It's like we've taken a peek inside their mind.
And it's a fascinating place to be.
It is, and we're not done yet. There's still more to uncover. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive where we'll wrap it all up and explore the implications of this conversation. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. As we've been going through this conversation, it's amazing how much ground it covers and how strongly the interviewee feels about these issues.
Yeah, you can definitely sense their passion and conviction.
And one of the things that really struck me was when they said that this particular election was the last chance to save democracy.
That's a pretty heavy statement, especially coming from someone who's achieved so much and has such a positive outlook on the future.
Right. It makes you wonder what they see that maybe others don't.
Like, what's making them so worried about the state of things?
Exactly. They talked about how free speech is being eroded. Information is being manipulated, and certain institutions are becoming too powerful.
It's like they feel that the very foundations of democracy are crumbling.
And it's a warning that we should all take seriously, regardless of our political beliefs.
Definitely. It's easy to get complacent and assume that everything will just work itself out.
But history has shown us time and time again that democratic institutions are fragile.
They need to be protected and nurtured.
And that requires active participation from all of us.
It's not enough to just sit back and watch.
We have to engage in the political process, stay informed, hold our leaders accountable.
And maybe most importantly, be willing to listen to different perspectives, even those that make us uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. We need to be able to have thoughtful dialogues, challenge our own assumptions, and try to find common ground.
Exactly. Shutting down opposing viewpoints or dismissing them outright just creates more division and undermines the whole point of democracy.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think this deep dive has highlighted some of the biggest challenges we're facing as a society.
But it's also reminded us that we have the power to shape the future.
It all starts with individual action.
Being informed, engaging in critical thinking, and having meaningful conversations.
It's about taking ownership of our democracy and working together to create a better world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So on that note, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And we encourage you to continue exploring these topics and forming your own opinions.
Keep questioning, keep learning, keep engaging.
Until next time, thanks for joining us.